Hi, everybody in the Brain Tumor Companion community. Welcome to our Brain Tumor Diaries episode 2. This is Life Now. Many of you met Matt last week from the UK. He's known as the Tumor Killer. And we had a great conversation and we were looking forward to continuing it. So here we are today doing just that. So welcome, Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty damn good, thanks. Appreciate you having me back. How are you doing?
Absolutely. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Really excited to continue our conversation. Got a lot of questions that came my way last week when we posted our last video together. So we'll just kind of jump right into the nuts and bolts of it. One of the questions one of the companions in my group had was, how does Matt manage his seizures? What did that look like? And how is he doing with them today?
That's a good question. I like that. Not many people ask about my seizures or the epilepsy side of it, so I appreciate that one. Um, so pre-brain surgery, my seizures were in the form of something that would look like a stroke. Obviously, like my original diagnosis, head locks back. I'm making some kind of noise. I can feel my face is drooped. Barely breathe. Obviously, I'm aware of what's happening around me, and then I would go into a full grand mal seizure. Obviously, on the floor, foaming at the mouth, convulsing. That's the right word. Post brain surgery, it flipped. So now I have focal seizures, which took me about a year and a half to actually get or understand. So unlike a full seizure where you're on the floor seizing, uh, a grab, a focal seizure is more localized to your face. Your face starts looking like it's twitching. It's quite hard to control. It's hard to talk. It's almost impossible to talk because your face is, yeah.
Mhm.
So for me, it's obviously on my left side. My brain tumor was on the right, so it's the left side of my body that's affected. Um, yeah. So mine are only triggered in stressful situations or emotional situations, which can be very, very awkward. So obviously post brain surgery, I managed to get myself back into work, working in the homeless hostel, which is a high stress environment.
Mhm.
And thanks to my brain injury, I got into trouble more than once, the disciplinary kind of trouble. So one particular occasion, I'm in my manager's office. We're going through paperwork as part of an investigation because brain injury problems. Um, so I'm talking away, and as she's explaining, this is a very serious matter. You know, you could be sacked for this. Face starts going into a focal seizure. I don't understand. I have epilepsy or any kind of seizures at this point. So I'm trying to hide my face. I'm trying to cover it. I have no idea what's going on. Anxiety kicks in. I just storm out. I think I just need to get away. I need to run away from this situation, not having a clue what's going on. And that happens a couple of times over the next year. Obviously, I end up leaving work when the brain tumor comes back and the chemo starts. And I end up going down the benefits route. So, welfare, I think it's what you guys have.
Yeah.
Um, so I go for an assessment to see if I'm actually eligible. I've got to go through all my brain tumor symptoms, all my brain tumor or brain injury issues that come about, justify why I'm entitled to benefits, basically. Luckily for me, the guy doing the assessment is an off-duty paramedic. He's just doing this assessment on the side, bit of a side hustle or moonlighting, maybe. So we're talking, and the question of how is your mental health now? How do you think it is? It's really bad at that point. I'd been spiraling since I left my job. And then I obviously get emotional. I'm trying not to get emotional because I've got that typical young man mentality. I'm not crying in front of people. I am not crying in front of another man. No chance. So with that, my face goes into a focal seizure. I'm trying to cover it up. I'm trying to get out of the room because this is embarrassing. I'm crying in front of other people. Luckily, I've got my friend sat next to me. She's holding me back. Like, you're not going anywhere. He needs to see this. He needs to see you as you are now as part of the assessment. And the guy looks at me and says, "You're having a focal seizure." What the is a focal seizure? Um, So I'm, trying to rub my face and trying to stroke it to counter what's going on. He says, "Just stay there. You don't need to do anything. I'm going to make a note of this, but you do need to see a doctor because that is a focal seizure you've just had. Obviously, when it's calmed down, um, it's probably the least most dramatic kind of seizure you could have. Um,
Hmm.
so now going forward, when I could be sat watching a sad movie. Um, I get emotional and I can feel my face going into this twitching, seizing kind of moment. I could be dealing with an incident just that I've put myself in. If I see
Mm,
somebody in trouble when I'm out and about, for some
right.
reason, I jump in and try and defuse the situation. But it's a stressful situation. Focal seizure kicks in. Um,
Are you on meds
Obviously,
for your seizures?
I should be. I'm meant to be. I'm much to the annoyance of my oncologist. I, j- I don't know what it is. I hate taking medication. Um, I don't know if it's a stubbornness. I don't know if it's through the whole mental health thing when I was younger. Obviously, my first time trying to take my own life, was through an overdose. So I think going forward from that, I have a I, j- I have a thing about taking medication. I think that's what it comes down to. Um, but yeah, much to the annoyance of everybody, I've refused to take it because it's not an everyday occurrence. And when I do have a focal seizure, it's more of a within a couple of minutes, it's wrapped up and finished. Um, Luckily, my partner, my girlfriend, when she knows I'm in a stressful situation, she can obviously see whether it be I'm going down or going up in my emotions. She
Mm.
just sort of just she can see it and she knows how to just sort of jump in and be like, you need to calm down, you need to chill out, come on, we'll go and do this, we'll go and do that. Or if I'm dealing with doctors or other situations that are starting to stress me out and bring on a seizure as soon as she sees that, you step aside, I'm taking over, I'm gonna do this for you. Um, so I'm quite lucky in that respect.
And you're
Um,
not scared of having a seizure like out and about on your own or just without having a lot of people around? I mean, it's a little
it's
worrisome.
now I take the whole this situation more seriously than I used to. It's a
Hmm.
concern, especially when I've just started a new job, so it's a case of, you know, listen, I've got this brain injury, and part of the brain injury is focal seizures that comes about from the brain surgery. That might be a thing, but if anything, when it does happen, if it's in public, it's more embarrassing. That's the side that gets me, and it's not something to be embarrassed about. It's something I'm slowly starting to learn to really be more accepting of,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I talk to so many people and seizures are so common with this condition and you just never know how severe that seizure is going to be. And so you gotta a lot of people just stay on the seizure meds for literally indefinitely. Like they start and then
Yeah,
they never stop. So I was just curious if you were on meds to control them, and then if you weren't, how often you were like, do you have them weekly, monthly, 2, 3 times a year? Like, what is kind of your trend if you're
I think
even aware
now,
you're having them?
oh, I know I'm having them. I think now it's more of a every couple of months. I really have to be in that emotional or stressful situation for it to be a thing. Um, Obviously, I just try and eliminate the stress and eliminate the emotional situations, even if that means not watching particular movies.
Yeah,
Um, like I say, I've got it luckier than most people, a lot luckier.
for sure. Well, I'm glad to hear that they're sort of managed. I don't, a lot of people don't like seizure meds because they feel like it makes them feel weird. It takes like 2 or 3 weeks to really kind of kick in and level off, and some are better than others apparently. But um, I do know once you start taking them, they say you need to stay on them because like the going on and off can really affect the ability for the medication to work.
Yeah.
But obviously for safety reasons, if you're out and about, you don't want to have like a big grand mal seizure in the middle of,
Nope.
concert or something. I mean, it just would be bad. So hopefully those are lessened over time for you. You talk a lot about mental health. All of your TikTok videos and the IG posts that you have, you're always talking about mental health and kind of the struggle. And I'm just curious a little bit more about what your journey has been around mental health. How young did you recognize you had struggles? Do you relate it all to the brain tumor, or did the brain tumor kind of just make it even worse? Like, what is kind of your story there? Because a lot of people struggle with mental health even outside of having a brain tumor.
Yeah. It's maybe a slight bit of a sidetrack, but from well, growing up, I always wanted to join the army, always wanted to be a dog handler, dream job. There's nothing else I want to do. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to join the army. I'm going to make something of myself, make my family proud, make my friends proud, and all that jazz.
Mm,
So I leave school, go to college, do a very strict uniform service course. You know, you've got to do drill. You're out in uniform every day, marching up and down the street in front of people. Um, you're out in the woods doing field craft, that kind of thing. So it's preparing for basic training. So it's pretty intense. So I do that for about 6 months. Everything goes well. Start my army application. Again, dream job, be a dog handler. Everything goes just right. And all the way until I get to Scotland and do my selection. So the idea is you do a quick medical, be through that, do some fitness tests, team building, done. I get to the medical, and the last stage of it is the thorough examination of your body top to toe. Bend over, touch your toes, uh, your breathing, the cough and drop, all of that rubbish. Uh, but I get to the bend over, touch your toes, and the examiner just runs a finger down my spine, actually saying you need to touch your toes. I'm sort of touching my kneecaps. He said, no, you need to touch your toes. Then I can't. I'm not able to actually touch my toes. Okay. Take a seat, Matthew. So I sit down and just the look on her face says everything I need to know. She says, unfortunately, you've failed your selection. Turns out I had scoliosis or have scoliosis, which is curvature of the spine. So
mm,
she can see my face and just the look on my face must have said everything. So disappears, gets a second opinion. Older guy comes in. He's obviously been doing the job a lot longer than her. Takes one look at my spine and says, not a chance. Looks at my paperwork, says there is absolutely no way you're going to be allowed to join the army. Well done for trying, but you're going to be going home now. You won't be going any further. So 17-year-old me has a 3, maybe 4 hour train ride home. And I said nothing for the entirety of the ride home. Oh, I felt like somebody had just sort of pulled the rug from under my feet. You know, I'd gone to Scotland expecting to go through the whole process, sit down in front of this big officer and get the congratulations, you've passed your selection, you're fit enough, you're healthy enough, you've passed all this, away you
mm,
go. And then suddenly it's, yep, you're not good enough. We don't want you. We don't need you. Do something else. Um, so the next few months, I fall into the whole alcohol thing. Uh, Not so much starve myself, but yeah, starve myself. Eating became a problem. So I went down to what, 7 stone. Uh, and did the whole locking myself in my room, feeling sorry for myself day in, day out. And with that, self-harming started. And that leads all the way up until I end up trying to off myself, take my own life. So, kind of long and grisly story short, I'm at home alone one day. I managed to get myself stupidly drunk with the full intention of just take as many tablets as I can. My mum's just had an operation on her knees, so she's got some very high dosage painkillers somewhere upstairs. They're away for the weekend. I'll do what I need to do. Job's are good, and obviously take biggest overdose I can. That fails. Then I end up moving with Plan B the next day, realizing that I've not, followed through in the way I thought I would. And then that ends up with me being arrested because the police don't take too kindly to a young guy trying to off themselves. Um, but yeah, it comes out while I'm in police custody that the overdose hadn't failed at all. I think it was my liver or my kidneys that had taken a battering, because again, it
Mhm.
was high dosage painkillers that I'd taken. So that's a rush job to the hospital. I'm in there for about 5 days ish on a drip, being flushed out. Um,
Mhm.
so I got very stupidly lucky with that. I think within a year of that, slowly started to turn my life around. Got involved with a charity named Prince's Trust, the youth organisation in the UK that gives a lot of people a second chance, regardless of your circumstances, regardless of what you did do or you're gonna do or whatever. It's just a second chance at life.
Mhm.
So I did a 12-week training course, team program, and it was like a fire lit under my rear end. It just sort of gave me there's more to life than getting in the army or doing this one specific job you want to do. There is more opportunities out there than just one particular thing. Make new friends, go and push myself to new boundaries, um, and eventually end up just sort of beating through life. Mental health side of things have just sort of taken a back seat. Now I'm more interested in doing something, anything, just get a job, get money. And that brings me up to about 20. I get myself involved in another training course, just a retail training course, nothing spectacular, nothing great, just something to get me off of the not working thing. Do that, talk to a few people about the mental health side of my journey, and then word starts to spread within that particular charity. You know, this guy's been through this, he's been through that. Let's get him in as a volunteer, as a young ambassador, which I think they still do now. But the idea is you go up and down the country and you talk about how the Prince's Trust has helped you as a way of getting more funding. You go and do these big presentations talking about your journey and how essentially inspire more people to talk about their journey. And that's where the whole passion for being more open about mental health came from. So I'd stand up on stage, I'd be talking to 200 people. Some on one occasion, fucking tongue tied there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, one occasion talking to 300 people, like business people, people have just turned up for a clay pigeon shoot, big la-di-da, posh, typical English countryside event, one of them. Um, yeah, just talking to strangers that have never heard about the whole mental health side of things, self-harming. What on earth is that? What does that, you know, there are people out there that have no idea, and being able to open their minds a little bit and say there are people out there that are struggling, but they're
Yeah.
refusing to talk about it. They're refusing to get the help they need because of that pride and ego that gets in the way.
Right.
Um, so obviously I was doing that through 20 to 23. And obviously around 20 is when I had my CT scan that missed my brain tumor. So I'm up on stage talking about my mental health journey while there's this brain tumor getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's quite ironic, but yeah.
Right.
So the mental health side of things, it all started before my brain tumor journey, I would say. Um, but then obviously post brain tumor or brain surgery, that's where things started to take a bit of a free fall, or a lot of a free fall. Um, so I think forcing myself back into work post brain surgery, obviously refusing to listen to anybody else's thoughts and opinions on that side of things. I know what I'm doing here. Leave me alone. Let me do my thing. No, I think that made it a lot worse, because I didn't understand that brain surgery was a huge major deal. Didn't appreciate that. Then obviously in 2019, I lost my job because of all of that. Then lockdown kicks in and that big C word does its thing. Um, yeah, I won't mention that one.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the whole lockdown thing just absolutely battered me. First few weeks are great because, you know, I've got the house myself. I don't have to do anything. I don't have a job anymore anyway, so who cares?
Right.
And then obviously the loneliness part of that comes in. You've got no connections. You can't go and meet your friends because lockdown. You can't go and do basic things. Again, lockdown. So
Yeah.
again, just as I think the whole self-harming thing has taken a back seat, I start I'm waking up every day planning on how and when I'm gonna off myself. Um, I think it's been at that point nearly a year since I'd lost my job, where everything's sort of gone downhill again. So I think I gave myself a choice. Um, so it comes down to I either just off myself, just get it over and done with. Obviously, Charlie did his thing the year before, managed to stop me from doing that. But this time around, it was a completely different kind of feeling. It was. I go into more detail about it in my book, the nitty gritty side of it, and yeah. But it just came down to either I do that or I just sell the last few things I've got and just piss off to South Africa and volunteer in this monkey sanctuary. They just opened the borders, like slowly open the borders to let more tourism in. So do that or give myself a second chance, go to South Africa and do my thing, see if working 10 to 12 hours a day with a group of strangers that aren't going to feel sorry for me, that aren't going to do the whole,
Mm.
it's going to be okay. I didn't want that. I just wanted something
Right.
to give me a kick up the backside, basically.
Mhm.
Uh, Gave that a shot. First few weeks, I relapsed, properly relapsed. So the self harming kicked in because I didn't think it was going to work. I thought I've just traveled to another country to try and avoid offing myself, but I still want to off myself. So I've achieved absolutely nothing. Um, yeah, it just, yeah, everything seems to get worse and worse and worse until maybe 4 weeks into being out there. Everything just sort of had a there was a more clarity moment. Every now and again, I'll post a photo of a moment where I'm just sort of sat under a tree with a baboon that's just sort of clung to me. So the story there is I'd fallen asleep under a tree in an absolute foul mood because I'm having my mental health thing. It's crippling me. You know, can't even hold down a job. I've run away from my problems yet again. Still feeling like a loser, a loner, and a bit of an idiot. Obviously, I crash out because of the fatigue. And one of the baboons that we've got sort of running around doing their thing had come over to me and just sort of clung to me as I'm asleep, gone to sleep on me and stayed asleep. So I wake up, this baboon's on me. I'll share a photo later and I'll send it over and you'll see what I mean. And it's just one of those moments I wake up and I think, why do I feel like this? That wasn't a quick fix cure, by the way. That wasn't oh, all my problems are gone.
Right.
It was a just that little bit of reflection, that little bit of I don't necessarily need to do myself in. I don't need to run away and do that.
Right.
Why don't I just give myself a break, give myself a few days, try and change tactics, try and change the way I'm looking at my life. Um, yeah, it it was that moment of clarity I needed.
Yeah.
Granted, not everybody gets that kind of opportunity, so I'll
Right.
always be forever grateful for that. But it's just again, that moment of clarity, being able to look and say, again, there's more to life and giving yourself a break, accepting the bad days, accepting there's going to be more bad days, but there's going to be more great days. It's
Hmm.
really hard to describe.
Yeah. So it
You,
sounds like it started for you with the whole wanting to join the military, right? Or the
yeah,
army or whatever. And then it kind of it faded out for a while you were doing your motivational speaking, if you will, and like trying to help others and talk about mental health. And then, of course, something as tragic as a craniotomy and a brain tumor diagnosis is enough to put anyone into a spiral. And then there you are back in the driver's seat of wanting to off yourself, which is like something you thought you had put to bed. And it's just such a reminder how mental health is a constant thing that we have to be putting effort into, that just because we have a few good months or a few good years doesn't mean that kind of the trauma of things that trigger mental illness won't come back, right? Like that when life gets hard, when things get scary, when you feel like nothing is worth living for, living in a pandemic, no more emotional connections with people. I'm suffering from a brain tumor. What's the point of life? Like you, right? You start going down this kind of mental, spiral of negativity. And so taking the bottle of pills or grabbing the nearest rope, if you will, is kind of seems like the best, easiest option because it's hard to deal with the pain, right? It's hard to make sense of the mental pain, the physical pain, whatever's going on. And I work in mental health, and we always say, don't make a temporary decision be a permanent outcome. Because our minds kind of shift. What you want one day you don't want the next day, right? Like our minds kind of quickly change their mind often all throughout our life. And so when you fall into making that temporary decision that becomes a permanent outcome because it works, then there is no choice for a second chance, right? Because it worked. And so I'm really grateful that for you it didn't, because you're here today able to share your story and really kind of thrive and live through all that pain. And really, the only way through pain, I say this all the time. I think the only way through pain is through the pain. As
Yeah,
crazy as the struggle is, as hard as it is, as impossible as it seems, like there will be a day where the pain is less, but the only way through it is through it. And you can run as much as you want, brush it under the rug, and pretend it doesn't exist, but it's going to find you and you're going to have to deal with it and it's going to suck. So it's like you might as well just, when it's there, just almost like embrace it. Like, okay, we're going to be dealing with this shitty pain today, whatever it is, mental, physical, emotional, and we're going to have to ride this roller coaster and see where it takes us. But, try always not to, please never have a temporary decision be a permanent outcome because um, obviously the loss of people when suicide happens, it affects so many people, and it just is a really painful, and I can say that because I lost my mom to suicide, and so I know what that pain feels like and how confusing it is for everyone who is left behind, and it's just really hard. So I'm just glad that you're still here with us.
appreciate it.
And I appreciate you talking so openly about it because there are a lot of people. I'm always trying to break the stigma. There's a lot of people that really shy away from even sharing their overdose story, right? Like, oh, my accidental overdose, or oh, that one time I tried to do something stupid. And it's like that's a real thing, and it's okay to talk about it. It's not something that anyone should be ashamed of or embarrassed about. We're human. Our mind takes us to weird places. It's not unnatural to have moments of total just loss and despair and craziness, if you will. Um, anyhow. So how is your kind of mental health and depression and today? Are you feeling like it's in a better place? Do you still struggle with it?
It's still there. There's no cure for the whole mental health thing. There's no, I'm fixed now. It's gone. It's
Mhm.
whatever. No, I still have my bad days. I still have days where I'm in a bit of a rut. I hate the position I'm in. Why do I have to be like this? Why do I not get to go and do things like that?
Right.
Or just days I'm just in a really crappy mood and I don't know why. But then I'll have moments where I think, and it's fine. I can have days like this because I know there's
Mhm.
still going to be good days. And if needed, I've got Charlie, who's
Yeah.
been a bit antisocial now for the old doggo cuddles. But yeah, I'm a big believer in getting out into nature, just going out for a walk or a hike, or even going to the gym. Not for a run, not for a big workout, just something that being able to get out of the house is just a big step for me. Just being able to say, I'm in a really foul mood. I hate everything at the moment. I hate everyone. I don't want to talk to anybody, which again is just normal. That's part of being human. But if I can get outside, if I can just go for a quick walk, even for just 10 minutes, I've achieved something and I've done something with myself that's positive. And no matter how bad my day is, at least I've done one thing. Um, so yeah, long story short, to answer your question, still got my bad days, but I've also got my great days. So one way or the other, the positive outweigh the bad.
Yeah. I remind myself sometimes when things go bad that the reason it feels so bad is probably because a lot of things are going well in life, right? Like if everything was always going bad, you might not even notice that something went bad. But when everything for the most part is pretty steady and going well and we're just not appreciating it, and then all of a sudden some bad stuff happens, we forget like, okay, this feels really awful because most of the days are pretty good. And we had our support group yesterday, and one of the things I was telling people, because it was like everything was going wrong in group, people's cars were dying, their toilets were clogged, like all of this stuff, everybody was stressed and overwhelmed. And when you're a brain tumor patient, like all it takes is one thing going wrong, and it just feels like a mountain to climb, right? It's like, oh my God, not today, my car doesn't work, like I don't have the ability to like manage this anymore, because our old selves maybe could have managed it, but the new self that can't really handle pressures or sudden changes very well anymore, the level of overwhelm and anxiety seems like it's too much. And so I was just reminding people that a good trick I always did was if something bad happens in a day or multiple things, grab a pen and paper and write down the things that went well, right? Because just because maybe your toilet got clogged or your car died or, it's raining and you had to walk to work or whatever it is, there's always like, you had food on your plate, you had a roof over your head, you had your friend who called to check in on how you were doing. Like there's also always a lot of positives to kind of counteract the negatives, but we kind of forget about those because if it feels good, unless it feels really good, you remember it, or it feels really kind of terrible, you remember it. But everything in between, which is a huge part of our lives, we kind of just take for granted. It's mostly all very good, but it's just another day, right? So, um, bringing our brains back to the fact that like there are a lot of good things that happen, like you said, that kind of are always worth living for and having hope for and kind of getting excited about, even though we're on this journey of brain tumor and confusion of what the future holds. We're still here, we're still able. So like let's go and figure out how to make it good, right? Yeah. How is
Yeah,
your level of like sadness as far as this condition, just like if you could have saw yourself at this age 10 years ago versus now, like does it make you sad to know where you ended up? Do you feel like there's something I should have done differently or I deserved this? And like, do you feel like sad because you're being punished? Like, I'm just curious what your feelings
it's
are.
it can change day to day. So last year into early this year, I was going through the whole family court side of things, and part of that was, speaking to my oncologist and getting proof or something that just says, I've had a brain tumor and got the brain injury, have finished all my treatments, but here's what's to come. The courts just wanted some kind of prognosis. So bit generic, fair enough. But if it proves that I'm hunky dory at the moment, fair enough. Then he sends a letter to confirm everything. So I'm flicking through it, and it says that my brain tumor will come back within 5, 10, 15, or 20 years from brain surgery. And obviously, my cognitive ability will decline because of the radiation scarring on my brain. And then my lifespan shortened because of all of that, which I should have really known, and it will have been explained to me in the past. But it's one of those moments where me and my partner are sat down looking at it thinking, shit, that actually means shorter lifespan. That means, my cognitive ability is going to keep getting worse. It was one of those moments where didn't look at it like that. Great. So that was a bit of a bummed out moment. I think that's kind of followed me along the last few months, sort of, you know, really starting to understand more of it, which makes the whole situation a little bit more sad. Obviously, throw in the diabetes on top of that now. So that definitely shortens things a little bit. Don't know how much, or like it might just be I lose a couple of years. I might get all the way up into my 70s and just not make it to 72. Don't know. Um, So that's kind of pushed me more down the focusing on my bucket list and making more memories and having more adventures and that kind of thing. So instead of sitting around feeling sorry for myself, oh no, my oncologist has said all of that, it's a case of, okay, well, now I just need to concentrate on having more fun and doing more fun and stupid things in a good way. Um, so yeah, kind of bummed out, kind of sad about where I am now. I do wish I'd done a few things differently. Just not, I don't have any regrets. I kind of regret not taking more photos and blogging this journey from day one. I wish I'd done that a lot more, but other than that, I'm again, like I said before, I'm in a really lucky, privileged position, and I'll always be grateful for that. I'm in a bad situation, but I'm in the best of that bad situation. Um, so yeah, I could be
Yeah.
sad, I can feel sorry for myself, but I just accept that it is what it is.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah,
And you
use my
turn
bad
your
situation.
sadness turn the sadness into motivation, right? It's like, okay, well, this
Yeah,
really sucks. And this is my potential, life being shortened and maybe having cognitive issues and other things that maybe creep up, like my tumors coming back, whatever. So I'm going to take my time and energy while I have it and do as much of the fun stuff and making memories as I can. And, you could just as well die in a car accident at 52 before you ever die from your brain tumor at 70. I always remind myself and others, like, yeah, the tumor could come back. Yeah, maybe it's something that we could eventually die from, and it's a condition that really changes our lives in a negative way. Or we could die from, something totally different. Like I could get breast cancer and that could take me before my brain tumor ever takes me. Like it's not we don't know, if only there was a crystal ball and we had an idea of how much time we had. I don't know if I would want to know how much time I had, though. Would you want to know?
oh, not a chance. I think that's part of what makes life what it is. The uncertainty isn't a bad thing so much. I mean, would you want to go and watch a movie if somebody had told you exactly what's going to happen and how it's going to end, when it's going to end? Or would
Yeah,
you rather have the the suspense and the thrill, just enjoying the movie while you know you can enjoy it? Probably not the
yeah.
best example, but it's the
Our
best I've got
lives are
right now.
just like, it's like one big surprise because we really don't know where our body and brain is going to take us every day. Like we don't, we could try to control it as much as we want, but we don't actually get to control the end decision or destiny of it. We just have to ride the waves and hope it all works out and that we can enjoy it along the way. It's kind of weird. But yeah, I
Do
don't
you
think I would
remember
want
the Do you remember the old YOLO? You only live once.
it.
That
Yeah,
old.
the craze.
I ended my book. Oh, I'm glad it's gone. My book ends with the line, "The whole YOLO, you only live once thing is absolute rubbish. It's not accurate. It's not. You only live once because you live every day. So you only die once. You live every day. That one time that you die, and obviously I get sick every now and again because so and so will say I died once, my heart stopped working, and it started beating again. But that aside, when you do die, that's it. There's no reruns or just try and do that again, second take. That's it. But you get to live every day. You get to take advantage of making those memories or making memories for somebody else. You're going to be part of somebody else's memories. Doing the crazy, weird, random things and doing the things that scare you. You get to do that every day. So yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of the magic of life. The celebration of it is you can really make it your own. And I mean, it's harder for the patients who really have the deficits of like they're not very mobile or they
mm,
just, truly don't have the energy and can get out of the house. I think that's the hardest side of this condition is when it takes away some of your physical function. It's one thing to be fatigued every day and to just feel like you can never actually fill your gas tank. But when your left leg doesn't work or your right arm doesn't work, or you're so confused all the time that, 1 or 2 hours of engaging has you down for 2 or 3 hours of resting, it's unfortunate. And there's so many different variables of our diagnosis that, like, some cases are really quite mild, like mine, and some are more extreme, like yours, are even more extreme, like people who have glioblastoma, who have really limited time to live, who have not a lot of hope with treatment options because the treatment options are so minimal for all of us. It really is unfortunate. Are you were advised to do radiation and chemo. Are you glad you did both of those things, or do you feel like you wish you would have waited? Like, what is kind of your thoughts on that?
Hot topic. It's a hot topic, and it's one that's rattled feathers in the past, but I 100% regret the chemotherapy side of it. Um, and maybe even the radiotherapy to some degree. So the radiotherapy, I did that every day for 6 weeks, which at the time didn't feel as bad as other people have had it. Half of my hair going that way, all gone. That was more amusing at the time than anything else. Granted, for other people, it's a traumatic experience, especially women, seeing the hair fall out in that kind of way. Obviously, I didn't understand that I'd be left with radiation scarring that would, get worse and over time or would change and obviously wipe out parts of my brain. Could be more me being naive at that point. With the chemotherapy, I didn't understand that it's a long-term thing. It comes with long-term side effects that you don't necessarily see straight away. So obviously, I'm now left with type 1 diabetes because of the damage the chemo did to my pancreas and who knows what else. Um, it kind of sucks, waking up every day. I've got to do my insulin every day, and if I have a hypo, that that's probably worse for me than the idea of having a seizure because if I'm out in public, a hypoglycemia or whatever you want to call it, I can't remember the official name. It's it's a small inconvenience, and I know I'm in the honeymoon period for diabetes, so I'm only taking 7 units of insulin a day, which is bare minimum. I'm not really got much room to complain there. But yeah, kind of if I had a second chance, I probably would have just said leave it, let the tumor do its thing for a little bit longer before we start looking at the extreme stuff. When I when it came down to going for radio and chemo, at the time, inappropriate joke, but obviously all of my journey is dark humor. I'm sat in front of the oncologist, and he said, a side effect of this treatment will mean you might not be able to have kids in the future. Great, I've got 2 kids, and I've been looking at getting the snip. So crack on, mate. It's fine. Matthew, I'm being serious. This could mean you need to start looking at sperm banks and all that. I'm like, no, 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 it's fine. I was going to get the snip. Crack on. If it means I can't have kids in the future, just go for it. I've got 2. I'm happy. I'm done. And he didn't find it quite as funny as I did, safe to say. It still makes me laugh, just his face, this stone cold. No, this isn't funny, Matthew.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the kind of attitude I had back then. Just straight in. I just goggles on. I can't see anything. I can't see the bigger picture. And that could have been the brain injury. That could have just been me being stubborn. Me being, I've got something in my brain again. Get it out. Get rid of it. But yeah,
Because
on the
you had
flip
a
side of that,
grade, yours was a grade 2,
yeah,
atypical. Is that or they
uh,
some of
I
them
know
they
it had
always say grade
mutation.
2 atypical out here, and I don't know. There's so many different ways that they say it, but I know grade 2s can either, like we talked about last time, mimic more of a grade 3, which is more of an aggressive cancer, or a grade 1, which is a benign cancer, which is what mine was. But um with the grade 2s, they usually, depending on the markers of it, like the pathology of it, they offer to do radiation and sometimes chemo or just radiation, or they allow the patient to decide, do you want to hold off and wait and see if this thing grows back? Yours was fully removed, right? Did they get 100% of your tumor out, or did they leave some behind
With the surgery, I believe they
with
got
the
the whole thing
surgery?
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, they got it out. It's gone. And it's a year, I think it was a year or a year and a half post brain surgery where they're looking and they're saying it's there. It's 119.7 millimeters, so just under 2 centimeters.
So
There's something
it's
there.
there again. You have it now?
Oh no, this is before
Before.
the chemo or radio and chemo. Um, so back then it was tumor's gone. and now there's something that's 2 centimeters, just under 2 centimeters. Uh, and the option was radio and chemo, or just leave it.
Gotcha. So the radio, so you had a craniotomy, had it removed, and then
Yeah,
you noticed that there was regrowth at a later date, and then they did radiation and chemo for that one.
yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so then they're saying now, post all of that, that the likelihood of your tumor coming back in the next 5 to 20 years is pretty high.
They say it absolutely will. I had to bring my. I never like bringing people to my appointments with me because it's a case of doing this on my own. I don't want to
Yeah.
inconvenience people, which is stupid. But
Yeah, you should have
yeah,
an advocate there to help you because I feel like I tell everybody this when you go to your doctor's appointments, especially something as heavy as a brain tumor, have friend, a spouse, an advocate, someone with you because I feel like when the doc first you get what 20 minutes with a doctor if you're lucky, you get a
yeah,
full 20-minute session and they're talking in terms you don't always understand and you sometimes forget your questions because you're so focused on trying to take in the information. And then I don't know about you, but when I hear something that scares me or that I don't want to hear, I just shut down. So, when one of my neurosurgeons said, I can't believe your neurologist didn't send you to us sooner. Now your tumor is a problem. It grew into your main vein. Like now it's much higher risk. We should have taken this out 2 years ago. And I'm just at that point, I was done. I'm like, what are you talking about? This, my neurologist told me this whole time this was like not a big deal. And now you're basically telling me I should have been here 2 years ago and had this removed. And now like I've wasted all this time. And there's like, I need to get a craniotomy on the schedule soon. And so he kept talking and so luckily my partner was with me and he just was taking it all in for me because he was like, I saw you just go blank. And after that, like all I was doing was holding back tears because I'm like, oh my God, now I'm in a situation like it could have been so much easier if I did it sooner. So, um, it's just having someone there with you, I think is important because cognitively, maybe you won't remember everything just from the brain injury. Emotionally, you might not be able to take it all in because it's like, what? And it's just good to have a second set of ears because, you know,
100%. And
yeah,
people are genuinely curious. People want to come to these appointments because not everybody understands how it all works. For me, I always feel like people don't actually believe the whole thing. So I'm like, maybe you should come with, or maybe I should record it. And if I'll take photos, I can show you what they're on about. But with the prognosis going forward, it will come back. My other half was more, I'm coming with you because I want to ask him myself, not because she didn't believe me, but he said this in writing. But I'm pretty sure you've told me different, so I'm going to come with you and get it from him. So she sat there, right? First things first. You said his tumor's coming back. What do you mean by that? Oh yeah, it's going to come back. It's at some point in his lifespan, providing a drunk driver doesn't take me out or
right,
something else. It will
right.
come back. It's oh shit, okay. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's good that they tell you that because then you go get your MRIs regularly and stay monitored and make sure that, you're on top of it coming back. The flip side is like you have to live life knowing that this is just your life now. Like that's what people don't understand, right? They
yeah,
think as you get up and you look great and you're a dad and you go to work and you've got a significant other and like you're living life, they don't register that like every night that you go to bed, you're thinking, how much more time do I have before this is a problem again and before I have to deal with it again? Or, we kind of live in the windows. I always try to explain it to people. You live in the window of your next MRI. So if your next MRI is in
yeah,
6 months, you feel good. You're like, okay, I'm clear for 6 months. Like the chances of this tumor coming back in this time frame is very, very, very small. And then you go have that MRI and you're like, okay, I got another 6 months. And then sometimes you graduate to the year and then you're living in a year window where you're like, okay, I should be good for a year. I'm gonna go, go, go. And then when I come back to this, I'm gonna see where I stand. And then you're freaking out and you hope to God it's clear. And then you're clearing like, yes, okay, I got another window. And so you're anxious every whatever, up to the point where you have to have your next scan. And then you're clear and you're like, oh my God, I did it. No tumor regrowth, right? Like I'm clear. I can feel less worried about things because there's nothing going on up there. So people outside of our, our little world of understanding this condition and living with it, they don't understand that, like, just anxiety and PTSD that I think we all have from living in these like windows of our doctors telling us, okay, you're okay, see you in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever it is. And it's just a weird place to be.
It's a bit like walking around 24/7 with a brick just sort of dangling above your head that's held up with a thin piece of string, and at any point that string could snap and just
Yeah.
drop on your head. It's a
Rock
bit
your
like that,
world.
like literally. But
Literally
you never
rock your
know
world.
when
Like, okay,
it might
we're
never
back in it.
snap,
Yeah.
literally. That might never
It's
snap. It might never hit you on the head, but
yeah.
you know it's there. Everywhere you go, it could happen. It might
Yeah.
happen, but
Yeah. It's that
yeah,
shadow
it's
that you just can't. People are like, let it go. And it's like, well, I don't carry it with me in a negative sense, but I can't let it go. That's like, it's literally part of you. How do you can't, you could try again. I think you can run away from it, but it'll just make you crazy and it catch
yeah.
up with you eventually. I know one of the things that maybe you wanted to talk about was people not always understanding that this is actually a brain injury. On top of it being a brain tumor, the fact that something's growing in your brain that's not supposed to be there, and or post a surgery where someone's drilled into your skull and caused, some havoc in our brain, which is not supposed to be touched. That we do kind of live with this brain injury status of stuff that can happen ongoingly. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It's crazy. Like, I didn't even before my brain surgery, nobody sat down and said, "You're gonna have a brain injury for the rest of your life. We're going to leave you with a hole in your brain. You know, we're gonna take a little bit of your brain out that is obviously not meant to be removed. You're not meant to lose your brain or pieces of brain. Nobody's meant to be touching your brain. It's not made for that, obviously."
Yep.
Um, so obviously when I finished the brain surgery thing and my personality started to change and the fatigue became a thing and certain other aspects of brain injury become a thing. Why is this happening to me? And obviously I got lucky, introduced to a brain injury charity where somebody sat me down and said, "You've had brain surgery, you've had brain tumors, you've got a second brain tumor, you've got a brain injury. Stop saying you don't have a brain injury," because obviously I never used to accept that if I can walk, talk, feed myself, and all that jazz. I don't have a brain injury. But when somebody's gone into your brain and damaged it, and your brain can't repair itself, if you break your leg, your body repairs itself. Your bone, I don't know how a broken leg fixes itself or whatever, but it's fixable. You know, you can go back to normality after you've broken your leg. When you've broken your brain and pieces of it have been removed or it's been damaged with radiation, your brain can't repair itself. It can create new pathways, but it can't repair itself. It can't fill the gaps at all. Um, so, a couple of examples. I used to do a bit of admin-ish work post brain surgery after obviously lost the hostel job. It was a security training place. So in the UK, you have to have a license to work in security, and part of getting that license means doing a week's worth of training just to prove you're capable of doing the job. We get this young guy come through, and he keeps failing his exams. You know, the last part of the course is you've got to do the exams, prove you're capable of working in security, and getting your SIA license. So we take him downstairs, take him aside. You know, is there anything wrong with you? Dyslexia, learning difficulties, yada yada yada. And he mentions he's had brain surgery when he was a kid. You know, he's 19, 20 at this point. You know, he thinks nothing of it. Oh yeah, just had brain surgery. I'm like, mate, I had a brain tumor and I've got a brain injury and it affects my cognitive ability. Has anybody ever told you you might have a brain injury and maybe it affects your cognitive ability? No. Like, right, okay, so obviously we can put the right measures in place for you. Now we know you definitely have a learning difficulty in the form of brain injury and, you know, make it easier for him to do the final exams because that is obviously a thing, it's allowed. Last night, I'm working in a new job. I'm talking to somebody and trying to explain, you know, part of this job is CCTV and having to watch people and in a venue. Um, I've got a brain injury, so I might struggle learning how you do things. Just bear with me, just give me a little bit of extra time compared to what you give other people. Mate, I had a brain tumor. You know, he mentions brain tumor, but he doesn't mention the brain injury. So we get talking about my tumor, his tumor, and it's like, how do you cope with your brain injury? You can sit here and do all the CCTV stuff, seemingly just no drama. How do you cope? He's like, I don't have a brain injury. Like, but you had a brain tumor. His was on his I can never pronounce this. Pituitary
Pituitary
gland.
gland, yeah, like in the
That.
more of the
So they've had to
nasal
go in for
area.
his up there. I'm like,
Mhm.
but like, surely you understand that, somebody's gone into your brain and done things to remove something that shouldn't have been there. Obviously, you don't want to be the person that says you have a brain injury. If it's entirely up to somebody if they accept it or deny it. But a lot of people just don't understand that when you've been through the brain tumor side of things, you have a brain injury. I get the
Yeah.
comment, "You don't look like somebody that has a brain injury," quite often. Like,
Mhm.
thanks, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks, but
yeah,
no
kind of do.
thanks. Appreciate the
For those two,
recognition.
it's one
Yeah,
of them.
it's
Like,
once you heal, right? Like your hair grows back, you heal, you're back to normal, everything's fine. People don't realize. I mean, I've had companions in my groups, they end up going back to work. They realize they can't function like they used to. They can't calculate numbers like they used to. They can't remember, like word recall becomes very challenging for certain things
yeah,
because their brain has been tinkered with and now they have an injury that's like more permanent, especially if your tumor is in the brain. Luckily mine was around the like in the meninges, so it was more on the hood of the brain, like in between the bone in the brain. Essentially it wasn't pressing too much on the brain, so they didn't have to take any of the brain tissue out. But for some of you the brain tissue comes out with the tumor and you don't know what gets affected after that. And luckily the brain is a brilliant thing and it can kind of reroute and fix itself in many ways, but you're still, your scar tissue is still there, like it's still damaged in some way. And so um people don't really realize kind of that injury effect long term. And then you're also just trying to figure out, where do I even stand post all of the trauma to my head, right? Like, how much can I do? What is permanently lost? How do I feel about it? Right? Because you don't know your boundaries until you start recovering. And recovery takes a long time. The swelling, the healing, the stitching, the follow up care, the swishing in the ears, the ringing of the ears, the inability to lay flat because everything feels like it's moving. Like it's just weird.
it's it's crazy. It's so hard to explain it to other people
Mhm.
that haven't been through it, or yeah, it's so bizarre.
It's so bizarre. And they're like, you look fine and you sound fine. And it's like, man, if you heard what was going on in between these 2 years right now, you'd be like, what is happening? Um, Anyhow, I know we're hitting our hour mark today, and so I don't want to keep you too long, but is there anything else that you would like to chat about while we have our time together?
Bloody hell. Can't think of anything off the top of my head. I can see this being one of those moments, we wrap everything up. I'll go to work tonight and I'll be sat there thinking, I didn't mention that, or I didn't ask this. And I've got nothing,
Yeah,
which
that's all
is
right.
pretty
You've
bad.
shared a
But
lot. Well, and the good news is we can do this again. So, if you do have
that'd
any
be awesome.
questions, even for me or for the community, you certainly can always write them down and ask them. But it's been a great pleasure to meet with you again today and to continue our conversation and to really kind of get into the heart of a lot of things. I mean, we talked about mental health and depression, suicide, just the overall kind of journey and healing process of this brain tumor condition. And it is quite a roller coaster, and we are not alone. Luckily, we have each other in this club that nobody wants to be in, but here we are. So I just thank you for your time and for always
Back at
spreading
you.
awareness. And again, encourage you to keep doing your videos because I certainly love watching them. So thank you very much, and definitely wishing you a great weekend. Thanks,
Thank you. Back at you.
Matt.
Cheers.